Good day everyone, and we are now at our last topic, which is realism in art, which will be presented by Group 10. So I am Angela Georgie Vitor, and together with my team, Mr. J. Nino Imboy, Miss Jel Marie Payupanim, and Miss Brianna Dulalas. But before we proceed to our discussion, let me show you our learning objective for today. So at the end of this discussion, we will learn what is realism in art, the brief history and context of realism, its key characteristic, and famous artists and their notable artworks. So now let us proceed to our introduction, which is what is realism. So realism was an art movement in the 19th century during which artists sought to depict everyday subjects and ordinary people with a great attention to realistic and natural details. So during 1840 in France, an art style called realism emerged. So realist artists wanted to show everyday life of an ordinary people. So as we all know that realism came after the romanticism, which is also an influential art era. So as we compare the two, lahi jud sila og tumong. Sa atong nahibaw-an, romanticism portrays vivid or kanang strong emotion sa ilang mga artworks, but in realism lahi siyang tumong, which is ang iyang tumong is mo portray or mo show sa reality or how the world truly is. So kasagaran subject sa realism is the people itself. They show their everyday struggles and hardships in their lives. So kaya ano, from romanticism to realism. So mapaingon sa tani nga wow, anti-romantic na siguro ang mga tao ani kay ganahan na sila unsay tinuod jud. Unsay tinuod og dili na sila adtong mga extraordinary nga artworks. Instead, they are now focused on the reality. So and now let us proceed to the brief history of realism in art. We will explore the origins and context of realism because an art style or art era cannot be merged without a reason. So naadyoy rason nganong mo merge ang usa ka art era. So we have here historical background, philosophical influences, changing dynamics of urban life, and emergence of the working class. So historical background. Realism arose in France during the 1840s, influenced by social changes brought by the Industrial Revolution, political upheaval, and changing dynamics of urban life. So this means during this era, France undergo major changes due to the industrialization. So when we say about industrialization, this means more industrial factories, more workers, more new technologies, and especially ang mga political leaders ani kay they are after wealth and power. Gusto nila mapasaka ilang nasod. So tungod ani nakahuna-huna ang mga artists sought to reflect the realities of contemporary society. So rather than idealized versions sa mga art. So ani nga time nakaamgo ang mga kanang mga artist nga dili sa ta maghimo og mga meet nga mga paintings nga kanang na strong emotion. So napahuna-huna sila nga what if ang realidad atong gam-an dili ta maghunahuna sa mga dili tinuod. Ang atong hunahunaon karon is the truth, ang nahitabo dinhi sa atong nasod. So mao na ang historical background sa realism. So now let us proceed to philosophical influences. So the movement was also shaped by Enlightenment ideas, emphasizing observation and empirical study of the world. So when we say about Enlightenment, so but basabot ani pagkaamgo. So mo day mo day na change ang usa ka era sa art tungod sa pagkaampo. Wow, it takes a lot of time day no para makaamgo. So, yeah, ang mga artist ani ay not just the artist but also the mga philosopher. Kay ani nga era daghan na kayong mga philosopher due to the kanang political movement or political parties nga ilang kuan. So mga bright ang mga tao ani para mangreklamo na sila nga dili ka na, dili ka na. So one of the great influencer of realism in art is si Karl Marx. So I hope kay alam mo ni Karl Marx. So kay si Karl Marx is ay kanang German nga political which is best known for his philosophical ideology or political ideologies. So naa siya gigama nga libro nga called Marxism. So nganong naka-influensya man si Karl Marx sa realism. So he influenced artists to consider social issue, class struggles, and the everyday life of ordinary people. So, ani nga time pod nagkalahi-lahi nag social class, naanay pobre, naanay dato. So, he influenced the realist artists nga kailangan isyo nila ang mga social issue, ang mga class struggles nga nahitabo sa usa ka country. So, kintahay, ikaw, pobre niya, unsay mo mga struggles sa kinabuhi. So, kanang si Karl Marx ang gatudlo sa mga artist ana. Changing dynamics of urban life. So, from the word itself, changing dynamics of urban life. Urbanization brought issues like poverty, overcrowding, and labor exploitation to the forefront. So, as the society emerged, nagadaghan ng mga workers, nagadaghan ng mga buildings, nagkaguot ang mga lugar. So, nanay urbanization. So, kay ang mga people from the countryside moved to the city. So, overcrowding na ang city. So the artist shows public places and new architectural developments like katong those renovated Paris provided fresh subjects for the artists. So ang mga artists day ato nga era is namili sila lugar nga pwede nila pagpunduhan para magama silang artwork. So, on the spot sila magamag artwork. So, like, anak sila sa mga parks, sa mga kuan, especially during sa paggama sa Eiffel Tower. Ana sila gatapok, ana. And, kung mutanaw mo mga travel vlog or travelog, mubasa mo travelog about sa Paris. So, ilang mga tradition na to, like ang mga artist kay magpundura sa usa ka lugar like sa parks and kanang basta random places nga nindot og scenery para ana sila magpainting. So unsa ilang nakita mao na ilang i-paint. So pwede ka magpa-painting ato kung if ever mo dong mag Paris, pwede kayo magpa-painting nila kay on the spot jud sila mo painting. So hantod karon naagi hapon na sila. And kanang right now I know the reason why nganong naingana day ang mga artists sa Paris. Lastly, the emergence of the working class. The rise of the visible working class and their struggles became the central themes in realist art. So artists began to portray laborers depicting their everyday experiences and hardships. With the rise of the factories and city, there were also a rise of working class people who work for a long hours in a poor condition and in a low pay. So realist artists began to focus on this situation. Kay ato nga time naghanag mga struggles, especially kanang mga low-class people. They are manipulated by their leaders sa mga tao sa taas. So instead of idealizing laborers, they depicted their everyday struggles, highlighting the hardships they face. So, in this way, realism art gave voice to the ordinary people by making them a central part or the central theme in an art. So, that's it, everyone, for the origins and context of realism in art. So, I will give the stage to Mr. J. Nino and Boy. He will be the one to explain the key characteristic of realism in art.
Hello everyone, so this time I'm going to talk about the key characteristic of realism in modern art. Realism is all about portraying subjects as accurately as possible, aiming to capture the true essence of what we see in everyday life. Number 1. Detailed representation. Realism focuses on meticulous details. Artists pay close attention to things like texture, light, and shadow, so the artwork closely resembles real life. Just like the sample image, so you can see the artist focuses on detail to look realistic. Number 2. Focus on everyday life. Unlike the other styles that might exaggerate it or idealize, realism showcases ordinary people and daily life. It celebrates both beauties and flaws in very authentic way. So, nakabantay ba mo na kasagaran sa mga landscape painting sa una is mga scenery or nahitabo sa mga palibot? Kay tungod kay wala pa man nauso ang camera sa una, so mo na ilang pamaagi para ma-capture ang moment through painting, just like the sample image. So makita man ninyo, no, mo na siya. So next is natural color palette. Colors in realisms are often natural and muted, which makes scenes look more grounded and believable, like we're looking at something real. So, by the way, kaila ba mo color palette? Sa wala pa nagka-familiar, mao ni siya. A color palette is a set of colors used together in a design or artwork to create a visually appealing aesthetics. So the artists use this color palette to help establish visual harmony and well accurate color. And also it can help to create clean and simple design, and can also help you to focus attention on the most important element of your design. So, mo na naka-advantage using color palette. Just like the sample image, mo na siya. So, nakapamilyar ba anino? Mo ni si Vincent van Gogh, a famous impressionist painter. Number 4. Direct observation. Realist artists often work from real life or use photograph as reference. This way, they capture detail that make the subject look truly authentic. So, as an realistic artist yet like me, no, ako jud i-make sure na sakto ang pag-draw nako sa mga gagmayng details. Ako jud i-aim na maawat nako ang reference or reference patanawon ng akong artwork kumpara sa mismong reference. So, we have here this one. Muna siya. So, next is number 5, attention to social issues. Realist art isn't just about beauty. It often highlights social and political issues. Artists use this style to draw attention to real world challenges faced by the different communities. So, some artworks na related to social issues na mao na ilang pamagi or expression sa ilang gibati sa nahitabo in real world. Just like the sample picture, mao na siya. Number 6. Absence of abstraction. Realism avoids stylization or abstraction, focusing more on what the eye actually sees without distorting it. So, in terms of realistic artwork, they don't need na daghan pag mga design. Kung unsa jud ilang makita, maora jud na. So, pare aning example picture mo na siya. Diba sa kaning sa left side, diba sa una nimo nga tan-aw, naka-identify na ka na tao na siya. Kumpara sa right side na abstract artwork na magunahuna pa kag unsa ni na dili pa kadayon maka-identify. So, in modern times, realism has evolved a bit. Some artists bring in contemporary themes or create works that look almost like high-definition photos. But at its core, realism modern art remains about staying true to life and showing things as they genuinely are. Modulas. And I think nahuman na. So the next topic will be discussed by my co-presenter na si Miss Jill Murray.
Let's move on to some of the most famous artists and their notable artworks. So we have Jean-Gustave Courbet or Jean-Désiré Gustave Courbet. He is widely known as the father of realism movement. He was a visionary who shunned conventional approaches to art. While he would feature his works in a famous salon, he also challenged ideas of what art was supposed to be. So he raised in a family with anti-monarchical roots. So the word anti, which means against, while the word monarchy, which comes from the Greek word monarchia, or which means ruled by one. So he learned so ang anti-monarchical mura siya ning oppose or ni antagonize siya sa monarchy. So he learned the power of being independent and nurturing an artistic voice at a young age. So while he briefly worked at the famous salon, he preferred the independence route and chose to sharpen his skills through personal study or travel. So this is the painting of Gustave Courbet, which entitled The Stonebreakers. So The Stonebreakers, it is one of the best known realist paintings for effectively capturing the everyday reality of an overlooked group of day laborers. So as you can see, the artwork of Gustave were depicting two men breaking stones on the roadside. So the scene is set in a rural landscape with a rocky path and a low wall in the background. So the two figures are shown in a very humble and ordinary posture, with one man kneeling and the other standing. So their tools and clothing are simple and worn, and their bodies are depicted with a high level of anatomical detail. So the painting was controversial at the time of its creation because it depicted the harsh realities of peasant life, which was not typically considered as a suitable subject for art. However, it became one of the Gustave's most famous work, and it is now considered as a masterpiece of realist art. Another painting of Gustave Courbet was A Burial of Ornans. A burial at Ornans, or in a French term, it is un enterrement à Ornans, or also known as a funeral at Ornans. It is widely regarded as a major turning point in 19th century French art. So as you can see, the painting records a funeral in Courbet's birthplace, which is the small towns of Ornans. It sets an ordinary provincial funeral with frank realism, and on the grand scale, it is traditionally reserved for its heroic or religious scenes of painting. So gi-exhibit ni siya nga painting for around 1850 to 1851 at Paris Salon, which was created an explosive reaction and brought Courbet instant fame. Another realist painter was Jean-Francois Millet. He is an illustrator and painter with a background atypical of many leading artists at the time. While many painters came from well-off families, Millet came from a farming family and grew up in a small village. So one of his painting was The Gleaners. So The Gleaners, it is Millet's best known piece, was considered one of the most controversial in academic art at the time. So his realism painting, which is The Gleaners, was uncomfortable reminder to the upper classes, and it made the upper classes feel insulted or uneasy about their status of where the wealth came from. So, considering it was displayed just a few after the famous French Revolution, art enthusiasts attempt to reject the painting for the attitudes it could cultivate, which is the upper classes feel insulted. That's why this painting was not perceived well. Here, the painting depicts three women bent over in a field gleaning or collecting leftover grains after the harvest. So the work is a realistic portrayal of rural life, highlighting the labor and hardship faced by the working class in 19th century in France. So it shows that the two women, their hands reaching the ground, while one woman in front of them already have bundles of wet. So the painting is characterized by its powerful statement about the realities of poverty and labor, and it is a testament to the resilience of a human spirit. Overall, The Gleaners was a popular work and it was being praised for its realism. So another painting of Jean-Francois Millet was The Winnower. The Winnower, it is one of the Jean-Francois Millet's first painting of rural labor and depicts a peasant of winnowing. So the painting shows a man dressed in simple clothing engaged in the act of winnowing grain, which is a process of separating the grain from the chaff or other unwanted material. So the painting conveys a sense of a quiet labor and rural life. So the next famous artist will further discussed by Miss Dulalas. Thank you.
So, good day everyone. I am Brianna and I'll be discussing the three remaining famous artists and their notable artworks. So, the third one is Honoré Victorine Daumier or Honoré Daumier, a French painter, sculptor, and a printmaker whose many works offers commentary on social and political life in France. He earned a living producing caricatures and cartoons in newspapers and periodicals such as the La Caricature, a French periodical, and Le Charivari, an illustrated magazine, for which he became well known in his lifetime and up until now. Lumiere's work would influence an offshoot of realist art called social realism, which flourished in the United States and in the 19th and 20th century. So one of his notable artwork is the Rue Transnonain, depicting the massacre in the Rue Transnonain, which was part of the April 1834 riot in Paris. This artwork also showed the aftermath of riot in which government troops discharged their weapons on innocent bystanders while in pursuit of a suspect. So the medium is lithograph. So what is lithograph? Lithograph is a print that's made using a stone or a metal plate. It is etched into the plate using a chemical reaction, and to make a lithograph, an artist draws a design on the stone plate with a waxy crayon or oil-based ink. And the dimension of the artwork is 11 and 1/4 by 17 and 13 3/8 inch, or 28.6 centimeter by 44.1 centimeter. So the classification of the artwork is prints. And his next notable artwork is the Burden or the Laundress painting. This artwork depicting a washerwoman and her child carrying a heavy load of laundry through a barren landscape. So the date of this artwork is 1850 to 1860. So the medium of this artwork is oil on panel, and the measurement is 39.7 centimeter in height and 32.2 centimeter in width. So let's move on to the next artist, which was known best as a painter of animals, no other than Rosa Bonheur, a French painter and a sculptor, and she is one of the most accomplished female realist painters in 19th century. So her most notable artwork is the Plowing in Nivernais, also known as the Oxen Plowing in Nivers or Plowing in Nivernais. And this artwork rendered a team of oxen as majestic creatures and won first prize at the French Salon that year. So the dimension of this painting is 133 centimeter or 52 inch in height and 260 centimeter or 100 inch in width. So the medium of this painting is oil on canvas. And now, we came up to the last but not the least famous artist, Edward Hopper. He is an American painter and a printmaker, one of America's most renowned artists, and known for his skills in capturing American life and landscape through his art. His early exposure in art is nurtured by his parents. So Hopper's work, spanning in oil paintings, watercolors, and etchings, predominantly explores themes of loneliness and isolation within American urban and rural settings. So Hopper's most famous painting, Nighthawks in 1942, epitomized his interest in quiet, introspective moments of everyday life. The artwork portrays four people in a downtown diner late at night as viewed through the diner's glass window. So the light coming from the diner illuminates a darkened and deserted urban streetscape. So the dimension of the artwork is 84.1 centimeter by 154.2 centimeter. The medium of this painting is oil on canvas. So despite the slow start, Hopper achieved significant recognition in the 1920s, with his work becoming a staple in major American museums. Hopper's technique, marked by a composition of form and a use of light to evoke mood, has been influential in the art world and popular culture.
Realism and other art forms. So, in literature, realism was a literary movement that focused on objective reality, accurately depicting everyday life of the middle and the lower class. It evolved after industrial revolution, moving away from romanticism and incorporating elements of realism. So, the the 1850s development was heavily inspired by Gustave Courbet's aesthetic, with, with, with Jean-Floris La Realisme defining realism within writing. So, ang mga literature ani nga era is now based on reality. So, mga writer, nagsuwat na sila about what is reality truly is. So, it involves to mga stories sa mga lower class, upper class, and the middle class. So, in cinema like literature and theater heavily relied on a 19th century realism for structure and thematic material. Neo-realism emerged in Italy after World War II, focusing on social issues and documentary-like impartiality through ordinary people and real documentary recordings. So, sa cinema, we all know what is cinema is. So, they also realism influence also the cinema style. So, instead of kanang mag-show sila mga fantasy or mga extraordinary nga mga butang, they are now focused on reality. Ang mga movies ato nga time, they are now focused on reality. So, instead of making a unrealistic movie, they are now inclined with the documentaries. So, mga tinuod nga panghitabo sa anak nga lugar. We also have here the theater. Realism in theater emerged in the 19th century, focusing on everyday psychological and social issues. It replaced poetic language with the ordinary speech and behavior, replacing exaggerated and pretentious acting with organic speech, gesture, and movements. Stage settings were also reproduced to match the natural surroundings in the achieving greater authenticity in theatrical text and performance. So, ani ka time, theater, ay, sa una, before the realism in art, ang mga theater ato like, mga puro unrealistic nga nahitabo, like, magama silang mga fantasy nga play, nga na. Pero sukat atong realism na nga era, they were focused on the very detailed nga kanang play, like ang mga team na sa theater ito is all about they kuan mga tao nga tinuod na, like ang mga speech nila like normal people na bitaw murag tinuod jud siya nahitabo para ang mga audience maka-learn sa ilang mga kuan, like instead of kanang kuan sad ang theater ato ang moganap sa theater imbes nga high paid actors ang mo-acting sa usa ka play, they are now using kanang ordinary people, like mo jud na iyang batasan ba or emotion nga kuan ipakita, like the reality niya. They are more focused on the truth niya sa setting nila, like mga backgrounds very realistic na ang background, wala ni fantasy. Like before realism, ang mga stage decorations ato kay na mga tao nga naglupad-lupad sa moon nya kuan hantod atong realism na kanang tinuod na nga panghitabo, like ang settings pod ato nga time tinuod na, and makita jud nimo nga kanang murag kanang 3D nga kuan kiyata. That's it everyone, but before we end our discussion, let us share a quote by Mr. Edgar Degas. So, art is not what you see, but what you make others see. The true power of art lies not in its physical form, but in its ability to open eyes, to shift perspective, and to reveal the new world. So, thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you learned something for today. Bye bye.